I decided to quit everything, and my husband supported all this, and working on figuring out what is like the easiest way for us to save our memories in these spaces. So I built Kinnect, and for anyone who's curious on how it works, is I know, and this, that it's just really really hard to organize memories and stories, and also think about making it accessible to all folks of all types of all ages. And if we think about the Facebooks or the Instagrams or things that we kind of all hate because they're actually not true storytelling places, and they also create more disconnection than connection. I decided to take what I hate about these environments, what I hate about memory preservation today, and build Connect.
Parenting Up Caregiving Adventures with comedian Jay Smiles is the intense journey of unexpectedly being fully responsible for my mama. For over a decade, I've been chipping away at the unknown, advocating for her, and pushing Alzheimer's awareness on anyone and anything with a heartbeat. Spoiler alert, this shit is heavy. That's why I started doing comedy, so be ready for the jokes. Caregiver newbies, OGs, and village members just willing to prop up a caregiver, you are in the right place.
Hi, this is Zeddy. I hope you enjoy my daughter's podcast. Is that okay?
Today's supporter shout out comes from Apple Podcast. Here is she. Loved this episode. Loved hearing the serious yet comedic approach with both Jay Smiles and Kelly Kells. Kelly Kells, hashtag the Grandma Whisperer. They brought to the conversation of caregiving generationally, especially about our mothers, grands, and great-grands. I relate to being connected. Our mother and elders and providing care in a beautifully empathetic way. Thank you, Harry She. If you want to be a supporter shout out recipient, please leave a review on Apple Podcast, YouTube, or Instagram. Thank you. Today's episode, creating, capturing, and keeping memories with Alzheimer's. Parenting Up community, I like to have a little sizzle, a little pop. We laugh along the way, we learn something, and we meet new friends. Today, we're going to smash all that up together. We have Omar Alvarez. And while he has done a whole bunch of really cool things in life, and he's not even that old, and he's gorgeous. But listen, we're not on here, okay, trying to get married and get dates. But now, if you end up getting married to him and getting a date, just listen, DM me. I do want a percentage. I expect to be there, and I like oysters. That's my favorite meal. But before we get into all of that, okay, we are here talking about caregiving, loved ones, how we manage taking care of the people we love when dementia pops them in the face. And Omar has a way to get around all that stuff. What's good, Omar? How you doing, honey?
Yo, Jay, all good here. It's great to see you again. Thank you for having me on the show, and hello to the community. Nice to meet y'all.
Yes, yes, yes. And for those of you who may be audio only, know that you can always pop on over to YouTube and see us. But if it's audio only, just know, listen to the warmth in his voice and know that everything really is born of love. So, quick backdrop. Let the Parenting Up community know, how did you get into caregiving? Because you're not, okay, let's do it like this. Give us a sprinkling of how old you're not. I don't know if you want to give away your age, but at least
Yeah.
say, hey, I'm not 50. I'm under what age? Who is it that you are so connected to that you said, I've got to be an active member of this community?
Absolutely, Jay.
Yeah.
So, like all of us, we all have our our experience of like dementia in this community and supporting the people we love. And for me, this actually started when I was younger in high school. I'm 33, so I'm getting in the middle age lane right now. I just turned 33. I wouldn't say I'm a proud 33-year-old, but I'm just glad to be alive. But yeah, when it comes to this space and this like support and care system,
I'm
it's
sorry, hold on. Did you say I'm getting to middle age? Listen here. Honey, you are so far from middle age. You don't even have a wrinkle. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, Jay, they're so funny. For me, when it comes to the dementia and caregiving space, I had a very direct role into seeing my grandfather have a dementia for 10 years before his passing. And then separately from that, I was also volunteering in high school at an independent senior living space while I was in high school. So when it comes to the environments and understanding and learning, my passion for giving, my passion for listening, my passion for understanding what is memory recall, memory activation, all that started in high school from personal experience of seeing my grandfather go through it. But as we all know, it's not just him that has to navigate that experience, it's our whole family that navigates that journey with him.
Yes. Okay, volunteering at a senior center in high school.
Yeah.
What
That
rock did you grow up under? Like, what? Who the hell does that, Omar?
Well, I was, I have the really, really fun experience in high school where people tend to talk about how they would go back to college and, that was like their formative fun years. But I had an amazing community in high school where our high school really encouraged us to volunteer. And less than a mile away from our high school was a huge independent senior living space. So we used to frequent it during the holidays, frequent it throughout the year to check in on the seniors there and spend time being present, present and listening, present and asking about their lives. And when you're at that age, you are right in hindsight. Go me, go little Omar. Like what a cool guy. But in hindsight, that really is an actual view of my passion for storytelling. As we all know, when you're in those spaces, you tend to remember your life and think about what is remnants therapy, where I start to understand those topics. Um, but yeah, I was very lucky to have that space so close to home, so I can actually learn from those that were before me, and understand what the healthcare system needs for our aging population.
Where did you grow up? Where was this high school?
Yeah, I grew up in Franklin Park, Illinois. It's about 25 minutes away from O'Hare in
Okay.
Illinois. But I did
Yeah,
grow up in Chicago proper prior to moving there.
got it. I know I've always enjoyed listening to old people. I got to tell you, I really like kids and I like old people. I happen to be living in the middle of that. I don't really like people my own age nearly as much, but kids and old people, oh my God, the stories, right? Kids are normally using their imagination to just make up a story, but I can listen to them. You could call it a lie or you could call it fantasy. I choose to call it fantasy. And
Mm,
the elderly, they're telling you stories of yesteryear, and because you didn't live any of it and you didn't see it, and it sounds like a fantasy, it's like they're like,
mm,
what? You didn't have a car, you didn't
mm,
have lights, or it was illegal for a woman to own a house, whatever the story may be. It sounds like another world. I
mm.
can imagine that you having that experience in high school prior to knowing this would be your line of work actually informs a lot of what you do.
Absolutely. I had no idea, but I did know at that time that it would be helping me. You're right. I think the most beautiful thing about stories is the power that they have and the power of the folks that lived in them, right? There's something really special about my grandmother who is in rural Puerto Rico. She's alive today, thank God.
Yay! Yeah, you know what? Ooh, an alive grandmother is an angel on earth.
Absolutely. And like getting to see her and the way she still lives in that same home that she raised my mom and her siblings in, and the way she just thinks about life, and it's such a beautiful way to see someone who was, just to be direct, not ruined by social media, not ruined by poor communication standards, you actually have someone that values like direct conversation and is
Mhm.
always positive. And I think it's because she's done a great job of like staying in the space that she feels the most comfortable in. She has not been jaded by all the news and the media and the constant pings back and forth, you know.
Right.
And it's what keeps her pure. She's truly an angel on earth, as you said.
Yeah. I love that. So now your caregiving, I'm sure there was some period of time between high school and becoming so involved with your grandfather's care. What were you doing professionally or socially during that space?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it kind of combines a bit more into what's happened later, which is now that I'm able to connect with so many caregivers about that experience and also
Mhm.
understanding the needs of the caregiving community today. I think what's quite important about my experience in volunteering in these independent living spaces was directly seeing why those administrative officers and folks were so excited about the volunteers. At that point, I didn't fully understand at that age, but now I do. It's
Yeah.
because they're so burnt out, right? These administrators, these caregivers are exhausted for many various reasons. And then similarly, when I would go to Puerto Rico earlier in that journey, same thing, understanding like who is helping who, watching the family members come in and out from all parts of the United States to go support my grandfather in Puerto Rico, and also understanding what the relationship dynamics of these caregivers are to our family. You know, I don't think anyone in my family understood that this caregiver coming into the space to help my grandfather was not just providing care for him. This person became part of the family. They were giving us updates every single day. They were telling us their needs, what they need support in, how exhausted they were.
Mhm.
And now, as an older adult, and as I think about supporting these spaces and helping people, I think about that right away to heart. Is these folks are exhausted and these folks are not supported. The government has failed in supporting this space. It's becoming a bigger conversation because of it.
Yes. Very much. Very much. Now, I'm not going to let all of the juicy bits and pieces out just yet, but hey, Parenting Up community, he has created and built an amazing product. And there are multiple products that are coming out. Um, I'm going to let him tell us a little bit more about that, but give us a tad bit of that fantastic background that has kind of led you into, you know what? I want to back up a second because we are a family caregiving community. Your grandfather, what let your family know, hey, he's not quite himself? Yes, he's aging,
Mm, yeah,
but this is not normal senility. He's not just rambling on about the news, you know?
yeah,
We think he needs medical intervention. Are you
absolutely.
aware of kind of maybe what some of those signs were that let your
Yeah,
family know we got to do something?
absolutely. A
Okay.
combination from a audible decline. We start to hear like a change in the way that he was speaking. That was a pretty big earlier. That was a pretty big sign early on in the process. It's like, hey, Papa, what's we call them? Papa
Yeah.
is starting to talk a little bit differently, and then you kind of go into the other things that are cognitive, right? So his
Okay.
shaking
One second, Omar, just because there are a lot of people who they're at the very beginning and they're trying to determine who in our
of
community if there's a problem. So when you say he was starting to speak differently, are you talking about the
a slur.
pace of his language or he was using different words? Can you give a little more detail?
Absolutely. We start to see a change in the way he would respond. First off, we start to
Mhm.
see like a pace difference. So, as we're currently talking, we can kind of see like a back and forth interaction almost feel free and almost immediate. We start to see like a delay in some of the responses that he was giving. So that was one thing. And then separately with that, great follow up there is also the way he was saying his words. At least for us in the Puerto Rican dialect, the Spanish community, we do talk a little bit different. We talk a little bit fast. There is a little bit of a spiciness to the way we talk, if you will.
I love it.
And
I
yeah,
gotta say, I love it completely all the time.
yo también. And that's the thing is we start to also hear that the way that his enunciation in certain characters and words was also changing. And I think with Puerto Rican culture like this, just being such a dynamic back and forth exchange of words at a speed that's often sometimes hard to understand, even before his diagnosis, continuous prognosis, right? That it was very clear for us that something wasn't adding up. And then you to the next part, that's one of the signs. A separate one is watching the way he was writing, the way he was like unable to like hold the pen in a certain capacity, be shaking his hand while he's writing something, and also like a delay in the way he wanted to write a phrase. I think those are the things that we were able to see is like, audibly something's not adding up anymore. And then separately, when he's trying to write something, you can tell that there's almost like this frustration because it was early, right? He had early onset, so we can tell that he was like getting frustrated with himself. And at first, we did think it was related to like an aging decline, but no, like it was like he was just fighting his brain basically to like write these existing patterns, existing words, phrases he had, and it was just getting harder for him.
Yeah, that had to be tough. That
Yeah.
had to be tough.
Yeah,
That had
he
to be
was
tough.
when the family decided to. And the thing is with the Puerto Rican Latino culture as a whole, there is there is studies that are done that show that oftentimes the healthcare systems and the relationship to doctors and like healthcare spaces, sometimes we kind of push it away. It's almost like the very last resort, where I
Okay.
feel like in other cultures, if you're just sick, you go straight to the doctor.
Okay.
But my grandfather was hard-headed. He did not want to entertain the spaces, but my grandmother and my family really pushed him to go. And then that's when this test started happening. And unfortunately, we believe there was multiple triggers of stress levels that happened in our personal family that
Mhm.
unfortunately we believe are the reasons why his dementia started earlier.
Okay. Was he living in Puerto Rico when the diagnosis occurred?
Yes. And
Okay.
that's he was living in Puerto Rico. And as much as I love my island, I love the culture, my people, everything around it. In comparison to, let's say, some places that we both know, like in Chicago or Texas, right? It is a different quality of care. So it did become a bigger topic in the family too of like, what are we gonna do? You know?
Speaking of a slack or something or a drop off in healthcare, my mother, Zeddy, was in Montgomery, Alabama when
Mm,
everything started to unravel. And while it is the capital of the state has never been at the forefront of technology. It's at the forefront of racism, but that is not what you want when it's time to have your LO treated. So I
mm,
found that it was necessary to take her to Los Angeles when it was time to have some significant testing run, and then ultimately move her to Atlanta when we wanted maintenance and management of her care. So it was,
mm,
I do understand what you're saying because there's no particular area or part of the US where you could even say, oh, yeah, let's just get to a certain, there's no even certain state. Like there's cities. There's certain cities where you can say, okay, if I can get within this training or research facility, I
mhm.
should be okay. Now, with your grandfather, what was he diagnosed with Alzheimer's?
Yeah, early onset dementia, and then the doctor was basically saying that the signs were leading to Alzheimer's.
Mhm.
Yeah. Another something that you asked earlier, Jay, which I actually learned recently in talking to neuroscientists and just in watching different kinds of media formats too, is an easy, not an easy, wrong wording, pardon, but another way of almost thinking about like if you're wondering if something's happening from a cognitive ability to someone you love, there is a simple thing you can almost try, which is you ask the person to grab a piece of paper, and then you ask them to draw the time, the clock, and then say, "Hey, can you draw 7:14 p.m.? Hey, can you draw 3:12 a.m.?" Like, just go ahead and like allow the person to really think about like, this is something I've seen my entire life, a clock. Can I go ahead and use the small and big hand to get to the time that the person's asking me? that was something I wish we knew earlier because I feel like that would have
Yes,
allowed us to almost like really think about what are the earlier signs that we can measure in that capacity.
that's right.
Technology today, as you know, has changed where now you can use your phone to understand and measure if people are responding in a particular way on your phone or tapping things differently. Those can almost be queued up to measure if someone might be showing signs of early dementia.
I love that. I love that. You're right. There are a lot of apps and things of that nature, but a sheet of paper, a pen or a pencil, and doing the analog clock, just old school, draw a circle.
That's right.
I recall, um, I never, thank you for that. I never thought about using that as a tool for a marker, just to see
Mhm.
as a baseline. I remember them asking that of my mom, and I was heartbroken of the way her clock looked. It
Mm,
was, I'm going to say, it was a freeform oval, and
right.
it had some numbers down in the 4, 5, 6 area, and
Mm,
it wasn't 4, 5, and 6. That was just the area that they were in, and then the hands, um, the long and the short hands did not make it inside of the circle at all. They were just somewhere
mm,
else floating on the page. And I remember just collecting myself and, walking to another part of the room and thinking, shit,
yep.
this is bad. I don't know what just happened, but I don't like it. Yeah. So that is something. Parent Up Community. Omar just gave us all a very non-scientific but extremely executable method of testing if something is not connecting. Another thing that they told me was asking your LO to read out loud. Now,
Mm,
obviously, I think you would need to be someone who you know, because you would know what their reading level is. Some individuals may have a PhD, others may have finished the 8th grade. So it needs to be someone you're familiar with, so you can say, okay, this is a book or a newspaper or a magazine that reading this should not have been a problem. And if they cannot look at it, there's something that happens with the brain looking at the page and connecting with the words and saying it out loud
mm.
that is very different than writing or watching television. So that's two simple things. So
I think you bring
okay,
a good point, Jay. If you have the opportunity and you're nervous about the loved one, right?
yeah,
Audible and then something written form are
hmm,
two very easy, affordable things that we can all do that don't cost money. And like you're right, they're not clinical outcomes, but we all know if we love someone and you really know them, you can tell right away if they're reading and it doesn't sound right, or if they can't draw a clock in the time you're asking them to do it.
exactly. And it also should be an exercise that allows other family members to maybe get on board,
Mm,
because often, there's kind of one person who's kind of pushing to say, hey, mom, dad, sister, cousin, this is not quite, they're not kind of doing right. Like, Auntie Teresa is not quite right. And everybody's like, well, what do you mean? She's under a lot of stress, or she's doing too much, she's working too hard, or, someone just passed away and she's sad. But if you had this example to tell other family members, that's kind of hard for them to ignore. And so then maybe you're not fighting on your own, like climbing up a brick wall, or like an example I like to use is you're not a fish climbing a tree. You have something on your side to help you out. So
mm.
hopefully that will be able to help some people in the community. All right, so let's talk about this fun stuff that you have created to help family members and caregivers um, smile through the hard times. The
Yeah.
umbrella product is called Kinnect. Tell us about it, Omar.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the when someone is showing signs of dementia early and they're able to have the understanding and awareness that they're losing their memories, and separately as a family, if you're able to understand that that person you love so much is also losing the not just their memories, right? They're losing historical knowledge, they're losing cultural insight, they have all this insight that the family has yet to ask or yet to know about, because we're all busy and sometimes you don't really know what to say or what questions to ask in these capacities. That's when my passion for storytelling, outside of volunteering in a independent senior living space, but really thinking about specifically what are the stories that we want to capture, and why is it so hard to actually find a product that makes it easy for our families and friends to connect in these private spaces so that vulnerability happens. So I quit everything I was working on about almost 2 years ago. Actually, I have to share this with you, Jay. I don't know if you know this part, but my grandfather is half the reason in building Kinnect. And I want to share this to the caregiving community. One of my friends that was my age, 31, 32 years old, was diagnosed with cancer. And halfway through his 2.5 year battle, it was obvious that it was terminal. So you have someone that's my age, that's married, um, also seeking a space to save his memories and connect with his friends and family that are around the country, or even that the fact that he has a wife, like he wanted to save these memories for her, messages for her, like a heads up for a birthday or something like that. Um, I decided to quit everything, and my husband supported all this, and working on figuring out what is like the easiest way for us to save our memories in these spaces. So I built Kinnect. And for anyone who's curious on how it works, is I know, and this, that it's just really really hard to organize memories and stories, and also think about making it accessible to all folks of all types, of all ages. And if we think about the Facebooks or the Instagrams or things that we kind of all hate because they're actually not true storytelling places, and they also create more disconnection than connection. I decided to take what I hate about these environments, what I hate about memory preservation today, and build Kinnect. So now anyone can join Kinnect, and we've created these storybooks. These storybooks are books like My Partner, Remembering Them, My 20s, Millennial Life, right? These really fun sections of life that someone can decide to select. And every single book has 5 chapters. When you open up a chapter, we already give you questions for you to answer in audio, video, text, and even upload pictures into it.
Okay.
What's really, really, really special, and some, as we all know, what the community is, storytelling is really powerful. It has effects of reminiscence therapy to allow the person to remember their lived in experience and what they've done. But yeah, we then kind of allow the person to share these memories into a feed for those people they've invited to see. What's pretty special is you can
Yes.
continually add people over time as your family expands, and it's kind of like the Netflix of your family memories and stories, because you can go back. I can watch Jay Smiles and kind of see like her talking about all these elements of her life in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. You just never know when you're going to want to go back and listen to these people that have affected our timelines and our lives forever.
Hey, what's up, Parenting Up family? Guess what? Have you ever wanted to connect with other caregivers? You want to see more behind the scenes footage? Want to know what me and Zeddy are doing? I know you do. All things Jay Smiles are finally ready for you. Even when I go live. Do it now with us on Patreon. Join us in the Patreon community. Catch everything we're doing. Visit patreon.com/J Smiles Studios with an S.